Today we're going to be reading Chapter 7, What's on Your Plate? What will we eat 10 years from now, or 50 or 100? Food has changed so much in the last century or even in the last decade. Will we continue on the same path? Will the food of the future look more like the food of the past, or will it be something we can't imagine yet? In the 2008 movie WALL-E, set several centuries in the future, overconsumption has turned Earth into a barren wasteland covered in garbage. Yes, this film is intended as fun family entertainment. People have fled the planet to live on an enormous luxury spaceship where they spend all day zipping around on floating chairs and growing weak and blob-like thanks to a diet of artificial cupcake, smoothies. It's a vision of food it's a vision of food and life completely disconnected from the natural world and what makes us human. But maybe the future doesn't have to be so bleak. Today, there are signs that people want to feel more connected to their food, whether it's a rise in backyard chicken coops, local farmers markets, or groups working to improve food security around the world. If you're interested in planting a community garden, looking to cook healthy dishes from different countries, or lobbying your school for decent cafeteria food, it's never been a better time or there's never been a better time or more resources or people who can help get you started. First, let's step back and think about our food situation today. In 1994, there were only around 1,700 farmers markets in the entire U.S. 20 years later, there were over 8,000. There are also 18,000 community gardens in the U.S. and Canada. Back to basics. No changes in the history of people and food have been more dramatic than what we've seen over the last 70 years or so. We've developed artificial insemination of animals, genetic engineering of crops, ever more effective fertilizers and pesticides, and a whole array of chemical flavorings, additives, and preservatives. Partly because of these innovations, more people today have secure, safe access to food than at any time in human history, not to mention more options and variety in what we eat. But food has gone from something we were closely involved with to something usually grown and produced by strangers far away. And yet, we're still animals and we need to eat. And what we eat still usually has to come from a plant or an animal, if you trace it all the way back. Even though many of us live in cities, we depend on the natural world to grow and raise our food, exactly as our ancestors did. Deserts and swamps. Eating fresh, healthy, local food sounds good, but it's not so easy if you don't have grocery stores nearby, or if you can't afford the prices at farmers markets. Unfortunately, this is a reality for many people today, even in countries where food is plentiful. Many North Americans live in what have been called food deserts, low-income communities without easy access to fresh fruits and vegetables and other healthy foods. In the US, about 2.3 million people live more than a 20-minute walk from a supermarket and don't own a car. We have an info bites here. It says food insecurity. In 2012 in the US, 48.8 million people lived in food insecure households. 11.3 million adults lived in households with very low food security. 16.2 million children lived in food insecure households. Number of children who don't have consistent access to adequate food. In the US, it's 1 in 4. In Canada, it's 1 in 5. Food deserts. Number of people who live in food deserts in the U.S., 23.5 million. Of those people, 13.5 million are low income. For every one supermarket in the U.S., there are 5 fast food restaurants. Organic food. Organic food sales in the U.S. So in the 90s, we had $1 billion worth of organic food sales. In the 2000s, it went up to $6 billion. 2010, $27 billion. And 2014, $42 billion. Different parts of North America can have extreme differences in food prices. A bag of potatoes that would sell for less than $5 in the rest of the US or Canada costs at least $10 in the North, where a grocery bill of $600 a week to feed a family of 3 isn't uncommon. In Hawaii, where almost 90% of groceries are imported, a gallon of milk can be as expensive as a bottle of wine. This is often a problem in inner city neighborhoods, where the only options might be convenience stores. They tend to have higher prices, and their only fresh food options might be a few waxy apples and some bruised bananas. Visible minorities, single parents, older people, and those with disabilities are more likely to live in such food deserts. There are also food swamps, low-income areas with plenty of fast food restaurants and convenience stores. The easy availability of unhealthy options at these places has a big influence on the diets of people who live nearby.
Many low-income people are considered food insecure, which means they can't even count on getting enough food to eat every day, healthy or otherwise. 1 in 4 kids in the US is thought to be food insecure. They may depend on a mix of help from neighbors and friends, food stamps, and inexpensive packaged food that is all their parents can afford. In Canada, food insecurity is especially high on Native American reservations and in remote northern communities, where most food has to be brought great distances and can cost at least twice as much as the rest of the country. For the same reason, food insecurity is higher in the U.S. states of Alaska and Hawaii. Feeding the North. Even though food insecurity is high in northern Canada and Alaska, those regions actually have many natural food resources. Alaska has a multi-billion-dollar seafood industry and lots of farmland. For instance, yet the state imports about 95% of its food. In 2012, a state grant in Alaska helped launch a school lunch program aimed at using local foods like smoked salmon, bison stew, barley cereal, and carrots and snap peas from nearby farms. In addition to being healthier and tastier than prepackaged heat and serve school meals, these options connect Native students to the traditional non processed foods eaten by their ancestors and help reduce their risk of diabetes and heart disease. We have cleaning the daily catch near Seaward, Alaska. What's old is new. Even though the typical diet of an American or Canadian is very different now than it was a few generations ago, there are people all over the continent who never abandoned traditional ways of getting food, or who have rediscovered activities like hunting and trapping, fishing, and foraging. In the US, reports say nearly 14 million people 16 and older went hunting for food or sport sometime in 2012, with most hunting animals like elk, deer, and turkeys. Even more, over 33 million went fishing. These activities aren't always cheap. Americans spend around 76 billion a year on hunting and fishing equipment, licenses, and trips. But these statistics are evidence that even though it's a lot easier to drive to the store and buy a shrink-wrapped steak, many people want to be involved in killing and preparing their food themselves. Food foraging is another ancient practice. Today, foragers gather their own food in the wild, things like mushrooms, fiddleheads, wild leeks, and sea creatures like abalone, an edible type of snail. The new foraging trend was started by people committed to local food, outdoor adventure, and sustainable food sources. But even these simple, traditional methods of harvesting food need to be undertaken in a way that avoids harming the environment. Responsible hunters, fishers, and foragers ensure that they take from nature in quantities that are sustainable and that they don't remove an important food source for wildlife. All aboard the grocery bus. One solution to the problem of inner-city food deserts is the mobile market, a truck, bus, or cart delivering fresh, inexpensive produce in neighborhoods that lack access to affordable, healthy food. There's a mobile food market made from a repurposed city bus in Chicago, and other supermarkets on the go are popping up all over North America. These help serve low-income areas where healthy food is hard to come by and beyond the budgets of most residents. Shopping for produce inside Chicago's Fresh Moves bus. Bugging out. It's a fact. Meat takes a lot of land and energy to produce, and the world can't support 7 billion steak eaters. One solution might be insects, a much more eco-friendly, cheap, and plentiful source of protein than farm animals. True, most North Americans wouldn't be caught dead eating bugs, unless they were taking part in a gross out challenge. Our aversion to insect consumption isn't shared by all cultures, though. Crickets, locusts, ants, and caterpillars are enjoyed in countries all over the world. Indigenous people in Australia eat a type of moth larva. Leafcutter ants are eaten in Colombia and Brazil. Mopane worms are popular in southern Africa, and in Cambodia, kids snack on barbecued tarantulas. Some people are trying to make insects more palatable to Westerners. An American company raised funds to produce protein bars made from ground crickets. An Indian restaurant in Vancouver, Canada, offers flatbreads made with cricket flour, and an adventurers group called the Explorers Club hosts annual dinners with creative insect dishes on the menu. All of us eat insects, even if we don't think we do. The average chocolate bar contains 8 tiny cockroach parts. Anything under 60 parts per 100 grams is considered safe. That might sound gross, but it's unavoidable. The cockroaches get into the cocoa beans when they're picked, and trying to get rid of them would require more pesticides, which would be a worse health risk than a few bug parts. And a common red food coloring called cochineal, used in yogurt, drinks, and candies, is made from crushed beetles. Fried tarantulas are a popular snack in Cambodia. Hands in the dirt. We've got Brussels sprouts plant is among the many foods grown in the community gardens in Brooklyn, New York. The most direct way to get back to basics with food is to grow it yourself. That might sound scary, but it's not. You don't need a huge landscaped garden to get started. Merely dirt, water, and a package of seeds. If you live somewhere warm, you can grow some things year round. If you live somewhere cooler, you might be limited to gardening a few months a year and you will have to research what grows well in your area, but there are still many options. You can grow herbs, leafy greens, or sprouts on balconies or sunny windowsills. Backyards or common outdoor spaces for apartment buildings can be used to grow a variety of vegetables from carrots to kale. One great thing about growing your own food is that you control what goes into it. It's surprisingly easy to grow a veggie garden with no pesticides or chemicals. You can make bug fighting sprays with ingredients you probably have in your cupboard, like soap, garlic, and chili pepper. Before you know it, you'll be eating organic without the fancy food prices. More and more schools across North America are starting gardens, but there are networks that provide resources and assistance for students and teachers. Community gardens, which provide people in a neighborhood with small plots of land to grow vegetables, are also becoming popular. You can go online to find out if there's a community garden in your area, and if not, you can even approach your city or town about starting one. Most of us in North America would have trouble growing all of our own produce, especially in the winter. But even growing one or two things can make you feel more connected to what you eat and more accomplished. The first time you plant a seed and see a green shoot pop up a few days later, it can seem like a tiny miracle. But you're also more likely to enjoy trying new kinds of vegetables if you grow them yourself. Want to get your hands really dirty? Today, there are opportunities all over the world for young people to volunteer on organic farms, usually working 4 to 6 hours a day for a few weeks in exchange for free room and board. Various websites and organizations help pair volunteers with farms that need help with tasks like sowing seeds, picking fruit, or feeding animals. Many people find this a great way to see new places, meet people, support sustainable farming, and learn the ins and outs of growing food. Gangsta gardening. Ron Finley grew up in South Central Los Angeles, a place he describes as a food prison, where lack of access to healthy foods was making his community sick. As an adult, tired of driving 45 minutes to the nearest grocery store that sold fresh organic produce, Finley started his own garden on the curb strip in front of his house, growing a colorful and fragrant mix of tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, pumpkin, lavender, jasmine, and sunflowers. His garden attracted attention from kids and adults in the neighborhood who were soon helping out and sharing the garden's bounty. When the city told him he had to pay $400 for a permit or remove the garden, Finley collected signatures on an online petition and finally got the city to relax its laws. Since then, he's helped plant dozens of public gardens, revolutionizing how many residents in the low-income South Central area approach their food. This is Ron Finley at one of his curbside gardens. Food at home. Do you help out with the cooking and shopping in your house? Many North American teens do, and in countries around the world, kids are expected to be in the kitchen or the fields from a young age. Lots of teens find cooking to be a fun and creative way to learn about food, try interesting new dishes, and gain some skills they'll use the rest of their lives. It's also a great way to shake up your family's routine if you're bored of the same old meals your parents always cook. How to start. You could watch your parents or other siblings in the kitchen and offer to help with preparing or chopping vegetables. Watch TV cooking shows and YouTube videos. Get a beginner's cookbook out of the library or search online for recipes with photo instructions. Like anything, cooking is a skill that takes practice, and everyone is going to burn their garlic or oversalt their soup once in a while. But it's surprisingly easy to learn to make a few easy easy and yummy dinners like pasta with basil pesto and tomatoes or fish tacos. But don't get too good, or your family might expect you to become their full-time chef. Don't be surprised, though, if you find that sitting down to eat your culinary creation is a challenge. In 1900, Americans ate only about 2% of their meals away from home. So today, and 50%, and then 1900, 2%. Today we eat half our meals out. On average, families only eat together about 3 times a week and usually spend just 20 minutes at the table. In the US and Canada, we also eat a lot of our food on the go. North America is the birthplace of the car cup holder, after all, and fast food meals designed especially to fit in the cup holder. Many adults and kids eat in cars more often than they eat at home, a habit that encourages people to eat more fast food and sugary drinks. Families these days can have busy lives, and some eating on the run can't be helped. But all sorts of benefits have been shown when families sit down for dinner together regularly. Kids and teens do better in school, have better relationships with other people, and are generally in better health. Taking the time to enjoy food and talk with our families can be a good way to connect after a hectic day. Thrifty eating. People sometimes assume that fast food is cheaper than cooking and eating at home, but that's not always true. A fast food meal for 4 people at McDonald's, for instance, costs over $20, but you can make dinner for your family in your kitchen using basic grocery store ingredients for much less. A roasted chicken with potatoes and a salad costs under $15 to prepare, while a meal of rice and beans with sautéed vegetables or spaghetti with tomato sauce and a salad can be made for well under $10. Food at school. School is where you spend a big part of your life as a teen, so it's no surprise that you eat about a third of all your daily calories there. Unfortunately, many schools are not usually great places to find fresh and healthy food, or food for vegetarians or those on a special diet. Traditional cafeteria lunches are usually high in sodium and fat and lacking in fresh vegetables, whole grains, and healthy protein. DoSomething.org ran a campaign asking students to send in photos of their school lunches and posted the results, featuring plenty of deep-fried food, scary-looking mystery meat, and wilted shreds of iceberg lettuce on their website. They also provide an online kit with information for students who want to improve their school cafeteria's options. In the hallways, school vending machines tend to be stocked with sweet drinks, candy, chocolate, and salty chips. Soft drinks in schools Soft drinks in schools might be a thing of the past, but schools still have big contracts with big soft drink companies like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, which have juice, water, and snack food subsidiaries. Back to veggie options. Going vegetarian might have benefits for your health and society, but can be hard for your social life. School cafeterias and restaurants may not offer many options, and even going to a friend's house for dinner can get complicated. It's a challenge to be the only person who doesn't eat meat at a barbecue or pizza party, or to quiz bewildered cafeteria workers and restaurant servers about whether there's chicken stock in the vegetable soup, lard in the bean burritos, or marshmallows made with gelatin in the Rice Krispie squares. Some vegetarian teens gain strength from banding together with others at school or online and asking for clearly labeled veggie options in the cafeteria or in local restaurants. There are also online resources that tell you which items at chain restaurants are veggie friendly, and many international food restaurants, Indian, Middle Eastern, Italian, Thai, have good options. We're going to start like right here. These companies pay schools up to $15,000 in much-needed funds a year for the privilege of supplying their students with the non-carbonated bottled drinks and processed snack foods that fill vending machines. You can find a few healthier options in some vending machines like bottled water and milk, and there's always the water fountain where you can refill your own bottle and save your pocket money for something else. There have been efforts to improve food in schools over the past years with mixed results. Some schools say their students complain when they serve better balanced cafeteria meals or replace chips and candy with fresh fruit. But some schools have had great success. In 2013, one elementary school cafeteria in New York City became the first in the country to go completely vegetarian. The school serves freshly made lunches like black bean quesadillas, falafels, roasted tofu, and brown rice. And about 90% of the students eat in the cafeteria rather than bringing their lunches from home. Since the change, school administrators have reported that kids have longer attention spans and are getting better grades. Hail to the chefs. One of the most interesting efforts to improve school lunches is the Cooking Up Change Challenge, in which teams of student chefs in 10 cities in the U.S. compete to create delicious, nutritious, creative school lunch menus for around $1 per meal. Every year, the winning team travels to Washington, D.C. to meet with lawmakers and discuss the changes needed to get more healthy food into schools. Food all around you. You can also have an effect on the food beyond your home and school. Local grocery stores and independent neighborhood restaurants are likely to listen if you tell them you'd like to see different options, or if you politely ask questions like where your fish comes from. whether they have any local produce or what they do with their food waste. These companies want to keep customers happy, and sometimes it takes only a small number of people to request a product or express a concern in order to make a change. Even big companies and organizations can listen if enough of us make noise, or sometimes even if one person makes a really big noise. People who are still too young to vote have made some stunning achievements in the food industry. In 2014, a 17-year-old girl in Mississippi named Sarah Kavanaugh convinced Coca-Cola and PepsiCo to remove brominated vegetable oil, BVO, which can cause nerve disorders and has been banned in many countries from their energy drinks. She started a petition on the website change.org and gathered over 200,000 signatures before the companies decided to replace the BVO with another ingredient. A Canadian high school student named Rachel Parent has become one of the strongest voices supporting labeling of genetically modified food and has even debated adult news reporters, much less informed about the issues than she was, on national TV. In Virginia, Nina Gonzalez talked to everyone from lunchline workers to the county's nutrition director to get more vegan options into her school cafeteria, and appeared before the U.S. Senate to speak about healthy school meals. And BB Sanders in California helps run a program that improves her community's access to fresh produce. These are only a few of the young people making their voices heard about the kind of food they want to eat and the kind of world they want to live in. Imagine what would be achieved if more voices joined in. This is activist Rachel Parent, who has become a powerful voice in the movement to label genetically modified foods. Step up. The old saying that perfect is the enemy of the good rings especially true where food is concerned. Basically, it means that focusing too much on trying to reach an ideal can make it impossible for you to do anything positive at all. In terms of food, the old saying that the perfect is the enemy of the good rings true, especially true where food is concerned. Basically, it means that focusing too much on trying to reach an ideal can make it impossible for you to do anything positive at all. In terms of food, sure, it would be great if we could all eat organic, locally harvested, free range, lovingly prepared gourmet food 100% of the time. But just because most of us will never achieve that, it doesn't mean that whatever small steps you can take aren't worthwhile. Cooking a meal at home once a week, even if you don't have pricey organic ingredients, is better than never. Buying one locally grown food if you can is better than none. And signing a petition or even reading up on an issue is better than doing nothing. It's all about finding little ways to make a difference one step at a time. Food for thought. It's a great time to be interested in eating well. Sure, the majority of the food in our supermarkets and restaurants still comes from food production methods that may not be sustainable over the long term for the environment or our health. Yet there are more alternatives now in North America than ever before. Farmers markets and food delivery trucks offering fresh local produce, healthier options at fast food restaurants that used to have none, organic, vegetarian, and allergy sensitive products on supermarket shelves. There are many organizations working to improve food in various ways, and topics like food deserts, sustainability, and healthy school lunches, issues few people had even thought about not long ago, are now being discussed and debated regularly by politicians. Things are changing in ways big and small. You can be a part of that change too. What can you do right now? Visit a farmer's market or try to get your teacher to organize a class trip to a local farm. Tell your school cafeteria, local restaurants, fast food chains, and grocery stores that you want to see more healthy, local, organic, or vegetarian options. Follow the issues you feel strongly about, whether it's food insecurity in your state or province or animal welfare in the farm industry. Start or sign petitions and get involved in other ways.